Good evening, David.
Good evening, Adam.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the week in wrestling. In a week in which Cody Rhodes has dropped the title, but is it just the only, or is that the only thing he's going to be dropping, or will he be turning in the future? A big week for TNA with the not only the biggest, well, their biggest TV deal to date, but the phenomenal AJ Styles returning to the show. Is Carl Fletcher joining Konosuke Takeshita out of the Don Callis family? And will the WWE nick two key talents from AEW? We're going to talk about all that and more on the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast with me, Adam Cousins, doting the great CM Punk t-shirt. For those of you that have seen that press conference oh so long ago will know all about that. And of course, as you heard, as I said, good evening to him, the resident problem child, charity man as well himself. We'll talk about that later on in the show. Mr. Dave Robinson. Evening, Dave.
Evening, mate.
How are you? How's the weather been?
It's cleared now. There's a lot of rain, so a lot of the snow has shifted, but we got hit hard earlier in the week, particularly kind of Thursday, Friday, Thursday night going into Friday. So that scuppered work plans, travel plans. A lot of kids got a snow day because all the local schools were shut. I think out of all the areas in the UK that were hit, we were hit in the Midlands as hard as anywhere. I think it was like an amber warning. So every school or every family member with kids at different schools and whatever, and friends and everyone on Facebook, all the schools seem to be shut on Friday. But getting back to normality now, and yeah, it's been a nice weekend. I've caught up on some wrestling, and I'm really looking forward to chatting to you about everything that's coming up over the next few weeks.
Excellent stuff. And it's funny you should say that there are people in Cornwall where my parents live were on a red warning, and
Okay, yeah, Cornwall's
my
pretty
mum
bad.
still hasn't got power.
Oh,
No
that's
electric, not since Friday.
okay then.
I'll be
We we
back on
we
until
did
tomorrow.
we didn't do too bad then in the Midlands.
Grander scheme
So,
of things, right? Anyway,
yeah,
we are here to talk about wrestling. And to be honest with you, Dave, relatively quiet week
yeah.
in wrestling. Not too, normally we come on here and there's lots and lots and lots to talk about, all different, This week there isn't. We'll talk about Cody later. I feel we'll get that moment later. But I did tell you before we come on that I had a little story to tell you now. Last week we were talking about Chris Jericho potentially return to WWE this past week, which he did not do on Raw. We're talking about ways in which he could potentially return. I was on I had Justin from the I Love Wrestling podcast on earlier. He's going to be taking part. His podcast is going to be in the podcast prediction league. I had him earlier on, and he come up with simple but genius way for Chris Jericho to return to WWE. And I'm going to tell it to you, and you'll probably kick yourself because I did. You hear me on the podcast slam my hand on the table because I couldn't believe how I couldn't have thought of it. He said that it got picture the Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia. The countdown clock comes on, gets to five, the clock changes to the Jericho countdown, hits zero, break the walls down plays, then you hear a record scratch, and then Judas plays and Chris Jericho debuts that way.
Well, I definitely think the countdown would be something that yeah, wouldn't surprise. Yeah, and I suppose the thing is with themes and switching between companies. The thing with Judas is Jericho's song, his
Yeah.
Fozzy's song. It's so there's going to be nothing stopping the WWE using that. Um, and really capitalizing on the popularity of Judas, particularly in Jericho's first few years in AEW. Um, so yeah, that would be that's an
I
excellent
just thought the
combination.
Rumble clock was genius.
Yeah, well, the Rumble was always the place that I thought he would return. The only the only problem I saw with that, he's trying to keep it under wraps and keep it a
Yeah.
secret. Not impossible, but
Mm.
difficult to do traveling to Saudi, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but even still, if it's kind of the best kept secret, there's still a really good way of doing it. There's going to be a percentage of the audience that aren't, yeah, don't. I know a lot of wrestling fans these days know what's going on and they're online, but not everyone.
Mm.
So it would still be a surprise to some people because
Yeah.
they're not going to reference it on WWE television.
No.
So yeah, I really like that idea. My only kind of question then would be, how is Jericho going to be used in the company? It's kind of hark back to what we were talking about last
Yeah.
week. Is it one last run? Is it a bit of a
Mm.
a bit of a novelty act, just play the hits, but ultimately not really amount to much in terms of title pictures and, too great a bearing on storylines? Or is he going to be presented as a legend and a top star? It could go either way, really, for that with that, because we know there's a big history, a long history with Triple H,
Mm.
and Triple H has got is the man with the power in WWE. I'm sure Chris Jericho wouldn't be too keen on going back if he was just going to be treated like a bit
No.
of a not a joke, but not
Yeah, yeah.
he famously, he's going back 10, 12 years now. Remember when he one of his runs he came in and he got beat by Fandango and
Yeah, WrestleMania, yeah.
yeah, and that wasn't really what he had in mind. And then he's gone on and had great success in New Japan and obviously with AEW and in a lot of independent promotions as well. So I'm sure the creative has got to be right for Chris to even consider going back. Um, but yeah, in terms of that idea and the music scratch and it changes to Fozzy, I think that would be a real, yeah, that is something that could get over very quickly, as you did previously.
Yeah, it would be fun. We'll find out anyway if Jericho is going to come back. But whilst we're on the subject of people returning and people potentially coming in, let's talk about someone that did come in this week on AEW. And to be honest, I hadn't heard anything about this. But
Yeah.
when you use the word blue chip call up, this is somebody with the potential to be massive in AEW, massive in wrestling. He's done so much in TNA, maybe not got the rub of the green that he should have done because everywhere you go, everyone's like, Jake something is going to be something. Jake something's going to be something. Everyone that says it. He may have lost that last name. It's now Jake Doyle, which is his real name. But he's signed to AEW in the Don Callis family. This could be one of the most underrated and under the radar pickups AEW will make.
Yeah, he's now Jake something else. But no,
Oh,
I got to give Luke Owen from the Wrestle Talk podcast the credit for that one. I heard him say that earlier, and I thought I've got to steal that. Yeah, I thought what I like as well, Ad, is that TNA is back on more of a level footing with the other companies. Yes, WWE is the number
yeah,
one company. AEW undisputed for me, the second
yeah,
company.
they are. Yeah,
But TNA right up there, and the wrestlers are going back and forth to TNA and from TNA. And I just love that the fact that they're in the mix, that stars are being established in TNA. And then, yeah, as you say, for whatever reason, doesn't work out, or whatever, don't get the rub of the green, timing, injuries, but they get that opportunity elsewhere. And yeah, as soon as he popped up in AEW, and I know the Don Callis family have got a lot of wrestlers,
it's
and it's quite bloated, but they're all there's not really. There's the odd one in there that you could consider lower mid card. Wouldn't say jobber, but they're all talented performers in there. But Jake something just fits right in there, or Jake Doyle fits right in. It looks like they're going to present him in a tag team with Mike Davis
yeah.
at the moment. They were both when they appeared later on in the show, they were dressed very similar, and it looks like that they could be the Don Callis tag team. We prior to Brian Cage's injury, that might have been Brian Cage and Lance Archer. So
Yeah.
Lance Archer's probably the person that misses out here, in that respect. But yeah, I think, like you said, a real good pickup for AEW, potentially a really good fit, and one that nobody expected. I didn't see anybody report it or hear it, absolutely nothing. I don't know when that was the last time he appeared in TNA. Um,
Oh, that's a good question.
yeah.
Well, he was advertised on the AMC poster things.
Yes, I
So
did
this
hear
would
that.
have been this. It would have been very recently that he decided not to carry on. Maybe there were talks privately going on between them because the contracts in TNA, they're never long. They're never,
No.
they're not 3 2 3 years. They're usually, I think some of them have just signed sort of like 6 months. like Ali, I think is a 6 month extension to what he had on. So they're not signing multiple year contracts.
Well, what I like, you've got TNA and their main event scene at the minute. You've got Kazarian and Santana who were in AEW, but then you've got Jake something who has gone the other way,
Mm.
and then you've got the collaboration with WWE and everything that's going on there with WWE and TNA. So they're all kind of, you know, um, not blowing the line, but kind of one big pro wrestling scene in the United States. And you've got three major companies. Yes, you've got Ring of Honor as well, but that's a bit of a feeder company for AW now, I would suggest.
Yeah.
You've certainly got those three major companies standing out on their own, putting on their own shows, establishing their own stars. And it seems now that when one of the stars do make a switch to one of the other companies, they're still well established and they still kind of continue with any momentum that they've gained in their prior runs in other promotions. So yeah, I think that's a potentially really exciting acquisition for AW.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've known him for say since Jake Summing, since TNA, and it's going to be one hell of a pickup there. I'm really surprised. I mean, I don't know if there's anything what's happened with TNA, like in terms of what their negotiations were, but yeah, if AEW have offered him a longer term deal, even if, wherever the money is, it's longer term, guaranteed money, isn't it? At the end of the
Yeah.
day, which is what everyone's after. But we mentioned the Don Callis family, and for a while on this, Takeshita has been seemingly him and Okada have been on some form of collision course at some point, which we all assumed would lead to Takeshita being kicked out of the Don Callis family. This week, especially on Collision, it was the turn of Carl Fletcher to start sort of airing some grievances, and he picked up on the screwdriver spot, which what we was talking about at the World's End show, and finally they come to bring that to the forefront. And Don Callis was sort of saying, didn't even want you in that Continental Classic anyway. You need to do concentrate on the TNT Championship. But would Cole Fletcher as a baby, would it work as a baby face, or could that be a prologue to him reuniting with Osprey when Osprey comes back in?
Yeah, I definitely can see that. I could definitely see longer term Osprey and Fletcher reuniting and quashing their grievances and reunited. But in the shorter term, it was very interesting to see that because we haven't really heard anything about that situation
No.
since World's End.
Mm,
It kind of been left as it was, and I'm glad that it wasn't something that would just get forgot about. I'm glad it's something that is very much part of the storyline
mm.
and will be moving forward. It was just fascinating to see Fletcher say, someone's got to talk to Okada, someone's got, because they're all part of this
Yeah.
entity, but you've got these egos and these big personalities, and they're all these guys vying for the top position within the Don. They all want to be Don's favorite, don't they? They're
Yeah.
the one that is getting the most love and attention, and Don Callis saying to Kyle, focus on the TNT title. That's great, but Kyle has obviously got aspirations to be world champion and to
Yes.
be, the top guy in the company, let alone the Don Callis family in all of AEW. So it'd be interesting to see Kyle's reaction to that in the coming weeks and how he feels. Um, yeah, that Don is kind of clipping his wings to us in a certain respect. That Okada's the top guy, and you're playing second fiddle to the Rainmaker. Which, if you're going to play second fiddle to anybody, Okada's, one of the biggest names that in the past 10, 15 years to come out of, the world of wrestling.
Yeah, exactly. Not exactly a bad person to play number two,
No, but how
too.
how do they all coexist? And obviously you got Takeshita as well. So who's
Yeah.
obviously just lost the title, didn't he, at
Yeah.
Wrestle Kingdom? But somebody that we've spoke about since he came into the company, really, and somebody we expect to have that main belt in AW sooner or later.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Just
Yeah.
slight aside before we get to something else with AEW, John Moxley really put over Megan Bain this week when he was on commentary.
Yeah.
And it got me wondering whether, I mean, obviously, look, we know something will happen with the Death Riders eventually. Long term, and thinking, because Tony Khan is now doing this sort of long term, he plants seeds here and there. Is he planting a seed for Moxley to align with Megan Bain, or is he planting the seed to get rid of Marina Shafir and bring in Megan Bain as her replacement in the Death Riders?
I think both in terms of he wants to align himself with both of them in some kind of faction, whether he brings them as the Death Riders or whether we get this split in the Death Riders. Another name as well, which you probably got down to talk about, and somebody that not only AEW are interested in, but WWE are interested in, is Gabe Kidd.
Yeah,
And
that's my
we've
next
seen
one.
him align himself with Moxley, and I would imagine that friendship away from the cameras and away from the television product may be a deciding factor as to where Gabe Kidd ends up. When we went backstage at
Hmm.
Forbidden Door, I don't know if you saw, but as we were being escorted to the press conference,
Yeah,
Moxley was backstage talking to Gabe Kidd,
yeah,
and it looked quite, um, quite an intense conversation about
animated.
what just, yeah. So I think that friendship, that relationship, um that situation may well lead to a faction that Gabe Kidd and John Moxley are part of together. Now, whether that is the Death Riders or whether that's something else remains to be seen. But I could certainly see Megan Bain and by proxy, I suppose, Penelope Ford, um, being involved with that group, whatever that, however that looks.
It's interesting that one. I do like that. And yes, you did, mate. And yes, I do recall seeing those two having a chat backstage. But let's now focus because you mentioned Gabe Kidd. Now, and you mentioned also very much the WWE interest. Now, from what the reports are suggesting, WWE are going all out for Gabe Kidd. They're one of the names. There's two. We'll get in touch with the other one in a minute, or we'll speak about the other one in a minute. On Gabe Kidd. And I was thinking to myself, there is no realm of reality in which Gabe Kidd, whether it's character or even his character right now, fits the mold of WWE. I do not see a realm right now that we're living in where Gabe Kidd can walk in, be the Gabe Kidd that he is now, not be fucking called Josh Simpson or something like that, what WWE tends to do when they bring in these names. Totally change him. The character that he's got right now fits. He's a fucking nut job. He's a nutcase. That's his character. That suits AEW. So if he's going to leave New Japan and come to America full time, for me, there is no chance in hell of him going to WWE and being a success. Not because he's not good enough, but the machine behind him is not the one he needs to be behind.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, mate. I mean, he's 28 years old, so I
Yeah,
suppose he's not even entered his prime yet. He's got a long future ahead of him, and there might be a future that involves Gabe Kidd in the WWE. But right now, as you say, he's ready-made. If he'd have beat Darby at World's End,
yeah,
nobody would have been surprised.
no,
It was World's End, wasn't it?
yeah,
Sure,
yeah.
yeah. If he would have been the guy that went over there, and even in defeat, he was protected because of the way they did the finish. So he's a star in AEW already. I mean, he got himself in really good shape as well. Um, so he was presented as a top star for AEW as well as New Japan. So yeah, I certainly think that Tony Khan will pick him up and he'll be signed and he'll be part of AEW. And I think it is a much better fit for him as well.
Yeah.
I could totally understand anybody and any wrestler with interest from the WWE that would look at that and it would be a hard one to turn down. But I think the reality is he would be put in NXT.
Initially, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't I don't foresee that we get to the Gabe Kid that we've already got,
We wouldn't.
without
No
NXT.
chance. There's no
He,
way. There's no way we would.
he,
The
do- he,
first thing they'll do is change his name for one.
yeah,
He'll come in as Gabe Kid, a bit like the fucking Mariah May that she come in as. Well, she never actually was never called Mariah May. She was always called the Glamour, and then Blake Monroe come in.
yeah,
What can you? Gabe Kidd is like without being disrespectful, it's a fucking generic name enough as it is. If you
yeah.
then go into the WWE who are going to want to put their name behind it, it's going to be something stupid. And then how can you have the Gabe kid that we see now in the WWE. It doesn't fit.
No. And I don't think anything needs to be changed about Gabe Kidd. As I say, like physically, he looks great. He's a great wrestler. His promos on the mic, his presence.
Yeah,
Even some of the vignettes that they were doing prior to the Derby match, it was just great. He's ready made for
yeah,
AEW. The only mitigating factor really was his contract status with New Japan,
yeah.
and obviously, New Japan don't want to lose all their top stars to AEW, whether they're British, American, or Japanese. They want to. I know they've got a great roster as well, and they're doing some really interesting things at the minute with seemingly the end of Bullet Club.
Yeah,
But yeah, they ain't going to want to lose guys like that where they can. But if they were going to lose him, or he's going to go anywhere, you would think that would be AEW, and it keeps the door open then for him to reappear in New Japan, like an Ospreay has said that he
yeah. He's
intends
going
to
back, isn't he?
once he's fit. So yeah, but again, nobody really could criticize Gabe Kidd too much, but I don't know. You look at even a Ricky Saints, Ricky Starks. I'm not sure that that was the best move for him.
No,
Um, it doesn't appear to be working out as well. You look at Cody, you look at others, but there's different reasons behind that.
yeah,
Punk, you can't really claim that he was an AEW.
no.
Punk and Cody, I don't really you can judge anybody else by
Perhaps Jade
their
Cargill was
success.
the only one, but even she's had her troubles.
Yeah, yeah, it took a while and took a lot longer than anybody anticipated, given, what we saw from her in AEW. Although yes, there was criticism of Jade's in-ring, everything else she seemed ready-made for WWE.
Hmm.
And it took a while, didn't it? It took a while, and she's finally kind of there now, or getting towards that when she's going to be, in some feature, top matches and presented as the star that we thought she would be a couple of years ago. So yeah, I certainly think if Gabe Kidd doesn't stay in New Japan, he'll be in AEW,
I can't
and
see him anywhere else.
yeah, and I think he'll be alongside Moxley.
TNA maybe TNA with a squeak because you can get away with it in
Yeah,
TNA, but not. I don't see him in WWE. But someone that I could see in WWE is another one that they're paying a lot of attention to at the minute, and that's Powerhouse Hobbs. Now, for whatever reason in AEW, whatever they've tried to do with him, in my opinion, it just hasn't worked. And it's nothing to do with, I don't think it's even to do, I just don't know if Tony knows. Because with Powerhouse Hobbs, you've got there main event level, world champion. WWE probably look at him and see a potentially a more athletic version of Mark Henry. But
yeah,
someone with that sort of stature that, he walks out and the fans go, fuck, people, do that. I see, we're talking about people ready made. Powerhouse Hobbs is ready made for WWE for me. And I think if I was Powerhouse Hobbs, I would probably go and have a look and see what they can do.
yeah. And again, we're talking about the wrestling landscape. I think that is a great opportunity for performers to really reset. And there's others in AEW, that
Mm.
I think are they at a point where they're just not gonna be elevated any higher on the card than where they're already at. Have they kind of been as successful as they can be right now, given the
Mm.
landscape, given the roster? Um, Sammy Guevara is another one
Ooh,
that
interesting.
you
I
know
see him TNA. I look at him and think X Division.
X Division or NXT.
Mm.
Um, which kind of there's a lot of crossover there. Um, but yeah, like you mentioned, Mark Henry. Mark Henry was who I'm pretty sure. I'd have to check this, but I'm pretty sure Mark Henry was the one that kind of scouted Powerhouse Hobbs
Mhm.
and kind of found him. Um, yeah, I'm sure there's something in that. If not, he's certainly a big supporter of him and been very helpful and influential in helping Hobbs, um, with his run up to the point where Mark Henry left AEW. So I certainly think that he's a big advocate for Powerhouse Hobbs, and that could help him get into WWE as well. I like the Ops. Don't get me wrong, I do like the Ops. I like Samoa Joe, and I like Hobbs being aligned with Samoa Joe,
Yeah,
but I just don't see Hobbs elevate getting any higher up the card. You put Hobbs in a match against Will Ospreay, a fully fit Will
yeah,
Ospreay in a pay-per-view. Who you back in there?
yeah.
Yeah.
On paper, you'd say Hobbs, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, but in if we were doing predictions, you got Hobbs and Ospreay.
Mm.
I think you're going to go Ospreay. I
Did
think
you choose Ospreay 'cause you think that's the person that TNA are putting their money behind and where they think the future is?
yeah, and same with Kenny Omega. A whole host of names. You know, you put
Mm.
Hobbs in a main event, you're not expecting him to win, and
No.
I don't know whether he's ever going to get that win. I don't know what his aspirations are, but most wrestlers' aspirations are to be world champion. Has he got a better chance of becoming a world champion in WWE than he has in AEW? Given that the run so far, and you would have to say probably yes. I mean, WWE are in an interesting position at the minute. They've cooled off a touch. I think that's
Yeah.
fair to say.
Oh, pulled
Um,
off, fucking switched off. You
yeah,
know.
but they've gone to for 3 hours again with SmackDown.
Yeah.
They have lost a few people from the roster. They've gained a few. They've promoted a few from NXT, and ultimately those people are going to need replacing. They're going to need a few performers to either that are already there in the performance center, or they're going to have to find them from elsewhere, whether that's TNA, AW, the independents. They need some fresh blood, in my opinion. And yeah, historically, WWE have brought guys in and they've repackaged them, and that hasn't tend to work. Have they learnt their lesson from that? And would some? No, I don't think so either. I'm just thinking out loud. But the likes of Gabe Kidd, the likes of Powerhouse Hobbs, they could go in straight away and make an impact if
Yeah, yeah.
WWE accentuate their strengths. And yeah, it's an interesting one, as you say. It's been doing the rounds, hasn't it, this week, as in the interest in Powerhouse Hobbs, and they're very high on him. But I'm
Mm.
sure Tony Khan and AEW are as well, and they won't want to lose them. So sometimes when this type of interest comes about, it can be absolutely great for the performer because perhaps,
Marketing tips.
yeah, yeah, exactly that. And Tony Khan and the creative team there will be like, okay, we don't want to lose this guy. What we got for Hobbs?
Yeah,
So be interesting. But again, I think this is a great thing for wrestling, a great thing for the fans, but ultimately a great thing for these performers that have got these. They've got options, and
yeah,
that must be exciting for a performer. Not only the level of pay and job security, um, but the potential opportunities to live out their dream. And as I say, the likes of Sammy Guevara, the likes of Powerhouse Hobbs, they'll want to be world champions. They're of that ilk. They don't want to be they don't want to be curtain jerking on the first match of the night, and they want to be in the main event.
yeah, they do. And we'll see. We don't know what his contract situation is, but we'll see with Powerhouse Hobbs and what happens with that. And of course, Gabe Kidd. Now, TNA this week. So those of you guys that are interested, on Tuesday, I'll be dropping the interview with Tom Hannifan that conducted this past weekend ahead of the massive new TNA on AMC. Featuring the return, well, at least for this show, of the phenomenal AJ Styles. Now, I again talking to Justin earlier on from the I Love Wrestling podcast, I put down a marker that AJ Styles lays down a challenge to Leon Slater for either Bound for Glory or Slammiversary, one that's a bit far away because obviously Leon's pretty, he's another one that's pretty much in WWE a lot more now, but one that they can lay down the mark for. But is Thursday night, do they need to make a big quote unquote impact to bring in those fans that perhaps have even left AEW and don't want to go back to WWE?
Yeah, and this is the thing where I mentioned it's a good thing for the fans because AEW is not for everyone, WWE is not
Huh?
for everyone, and TNA does offer an alternative,
Mhm.
um, and alternative start. And the thought of that match, Leon Slater and AJ Styles, that
Yes.
will be phenomenal, I think that's the best word to describe that situation.
Oh, mate, if that happens,
But
Jesus.
but yeah, it'd be really interesting to see what AJ's got to say. I'm expecting some other TNA stalwarts to appear on the show. Perhaps.
What about, and this is throwing it out because I read that there's apparent interest, maybe something to do with maybe he's deal with the WWE. What about Crystal? So, and this is another one that Justin come out with. What if Chris Jericho throws us off and returns or debuts at the one promotion that he hasn't wrestled in, AEW, AEW, TNA, does a stint there, and then eventually makes his way to the WWE?
Yeah, yeah. That there was some chatter about that, about Jericho potentially wanting to go to TNA. I mean, imagine him taking out AJ. I mean, I know they've got history in the WWE.
Taking
Uh,
out Santana. Didn't he? Did he
yeah,
not put Santana in the inner circle?
yeah, yeah. That has got, great potential. You know, um, yeah, there's some option. I'd like to see an appearance from Abyss. Chris Park, obviously
Yeah,
off the
that'd be
tools, if
cool.
you like,
Yeah,
these
yeah,
days.
yeah.
But a big part of TNA and their history. And there's countless others. It'd be a really interesting show, but I don't think AJ is going to be the only. Not
No.
surprised because it's been announced, but special attraction. I think there'll be a few surprises, a few people turn up. Um, as you say, to draw more eyes to the product, the lapsed fans,
Yep.
fans that were solely TNA fans, fans that, as you say, might have checked out watching other promotions, but they still want to, they kind of still keep tabs on what's going on in the wrestling landscape. So I'm sure the show will do a good number,
Mm.
and hopefully TNA can kick on and continue this kind of three-way. We've got massive three-way interest for me in terms of the United States, in terms of um, really interesting, really interesting for AEW to have such a phenomenal 2025, WWE to have a dip, but acquire or to have this working relationship with TNA, where TNA are getting so many plaudits from wrestling fans, and that's been the way for a couple of years now. I mean, your involvement with TNA is going back kind of 18 months, 2 years.
You done the
Uh,
first interview, my friend.
yeah, yeah. So we've been talking about TNA for a long time.
Oh, since the show's inception in 2023.
Yeah, yeah, and then yeah, the interesting changes in WWE and who they're interested in, and NXT as well. NXT is still a factor in the wrestling landscape, big time, because you get a lot of these guys that show up in TNA and then get promoted to NXT and then get promoted to the main roster. And some of I don't know, I don't think there's have many huge successes on that front, but they've
I haven't had
certainly.
any successes because they have no fucking clue what to do with them when they get
No,
called up.
I mean there are a few exceptions, I suppose. Finn Balor being one, maybe.
I still don't think they've done him right.
No, no, no. I mean, initially when he came in, though, he was Universal
Kevin
Champion.
Owens, perhaps.
Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn.
Sami Zayn, maybe.
You could say Samoa Joe. I know it wasn't a long
Yeah,
run, but he was presented well in NXT,
yeah,
and he was champion, and he was presented pretty well in on the main roster. Although he didn't
yeah,
get the ultimate, but he was up. He was in that fatal four-way match, and he was
yeah,
locking horns with Brock Lesnar. So
yeah.
there are a few that I would say. I mean, Elias, the one. I actually think his main roster.
Elijah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now Elijah. But
But
yes, Elias.
I actually think he was probably at times made a bigger deal of on the main roster than he was in NXT. But there are many more that they didn't get right than that they have got right.
Hmm.
But NXT is still part of the conversation when
Yeah.
when you're talking about talent going to the WWE, because 9 times out of 10 that's where they get put first. Um, but yeah, it's gonna be they're gonna have a great pay-per-view next Saturday, is it, Genesis?
Genesis next Saturday. Yes.
So and Thursday is gonna set us up perfectly for that.
It will do indeed. I'm going to just put when I put this snippet out, I'm just going to put Dave is all in for freeways.
Yeah, yeah. Always.
Always. But yes, Genesis. The big debut this coming Thursday. Genesis this coming Saturday. TNA's slogan for Thursday is "You never know who's going to show up."
Oh, there you go.
Some other names could be on the horizon. EC3 potentially as well. He's been doing a dropping a lot of old hints as well.
Mr. Anderson, would that be something that the TNA
I-
fans would want? I know he was there last year, wasn't he, for a cup of coffee? So
yeah, he done a couple of shows last year. Yeah, potentially. There's quite a lot. I mean, we'll
where's
see.
James Storm these days?
Well, that's another one that's been brought up. He's acting actually at the minute, James
Yeah,
Storm. He's doing some acting, but yeah, we'll find out. This Thursday is going to be great. I'm going to just quickly move on to our prediction league. 10 podcasts in this prediction league this year, us included, of course, in that 10. So it is us. I'm going to try and get them all right. I'm probably going to get fucking miss one out. It's our good friend Gary Joe on the league. It's our good friends Mongo and Emily from Cruising with Kayfabe. It's a debut of people I've never spoke to before in my life, the Wrestling Junkies. They're in it as well. I've never had any conversation with the wrestling pedigree other than other than this. Where I'm going to be going on these shows. Uh, I love wrestling, of course. Who I've been on. I was on their show. They're on there today. He was on. Justin was on today. CCP podcasting. Chris Page, who I've actually turned into a little agent for because I've actually got him some talent. He's got promotion over there in the States, and I've got him I've got him to get a promotion. He's got a promotion. I've got him to some talent. NWA talent going to be on his show. So him. We've got my good friend Harry from over here in the UK, Wrestling Life UK. He goes to all the Ignite shows and a lot of Brit Rest
right.
shows. So he's a good lad. He's a good lad. I've got Jona's podcasting network, one of the biggest podcasting networks around in the UK, and I've got one name left, and I'm going to have to go to my uh, um, thing. And have I said them all? And then it's just, oh no, another good. These, so the 10th, the wild card entry into this, and there's a backstory here. We actually met at an Ignite show. There was call. Was it an Ignite show where they got calls for it? Well, it was quite funny because myself and Andy and Rachel were there, and we were talking us and the ministry and this podcast, the Ministry of Wrestling, and all of a sudden a big War Games chant broke out because they was expecting us to go, be against each other because we're rival podcasters. But a slight aside to that is they're the ones that recommended us to. They're the ones that recommended TNA to us. So told TNA to hit us up for interviews and stuff like that. And that's one of the reasons that we got TNA
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well. So AJ and the team from the Ministry of Wrestling. But what a great way to
Great
bring
lineup,
podcasts
yeah, for
together.
the first year of wrestling predictions.
I had some people that I had to say no to as well. I can't, Jesus, 10 is like, in terms of making sure we've got all the predictions, getting them all done. I'm potentially trying to sort out a Royal Rumble watch along because it's going to be over here at a great time for us as well. So yeah, it's a lot to do. I couldn't, there's a couple of names out there. That I just, Nerdic Pro podcast. Apologies, I've been on that show as well, and I just couldn't you know the more and more that we do, it was to the more and more people that was interested, it's just become a bit harder for me to go to 10 is
Yeah,
a lot
there's a
of
lot of
work to
admin
do
involved there. Yeah,
on top of work. And I'll just say apologies to a few more. Wrestling is awesome as well. Apologies for that for you guys. Look, maybe next year we'll see what happens this year, right?
yeah, yeah,
And if it ticks off the way, or the way it kicks off, the way it's kicking off in a minute, the majority of this, it brings us podcasters together, right? And that can only be a good thing in the future. But
absolutely.
we've got our predictions. We're ready for Genesis, my man. Let's see. I mean, relying on you, man. And your AEW knowledge is going to be tested on this one.
Yeah,
So
I usually do pretty well on the AEW pay-per-views.
you actually
So
do, to be fair. So
yeah, I think between us, mate, we're in for a
we're
shot. We're in for a
We're,
shot.
we're in with a shot, aren't we? Yeah, we're in with a shot. But let's talk all things WWE now as we finalize. Now, NXT call-ups are in full swing as well this week. And my thing to that is I don't think anyone should be called up unless they've got at least a short-term 6-month plan for them. Obafembi is the biggest one. Is obviously the NXT champion, left the title in the ring at the end of NXT. And by the way, Germany, your crowds are fucking shit. They had
Oh, yeah,
SmackDown this
yeah,
week. What the fuck was that? I think that is, you could have said me and you there. We would have made more noise.
yeah. I was really surprised because we've had so many great European crowds, and
Yeah.
not just European crowds, crowds. But I was really expecting a lot more from Berlin. Don't know whether it was how it was mic'd or, but I don't think so. I just think they were quite flat. It got to be a surprise for WWE that. They
It
must have
was
been terrible.
terrible. Frankfurt tomorrow for Raw. Jesus, they can't get any worse, surely.
No,
Consider what they had. We would have bit around. I mean, to be fair, London this coming Friday for SmackDown has got four matches. With the winners will then go to a fatal four-way at Saturday night's main event to be number one contender, which we'll get to
are you
in a
going on
second.
Friday, mate?
No, I'm not. No,
Vicky
I
Price.
was, mate. I know that they've. Funnily enough, I've just been reading online that they've slashed ticket prices now,
Yeah.
so that gives you an inkling as to what they're probably not doing that well. Ticket pricing, and at the pricing I was seeing, I'm just not. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not going to pay a stupid amount of money to go and watch.
We spoke about this
Mm.
about a year ago, maybe longer,
Mhm.
and we said, these ticket prices that there is going to get a point where yeah, people are just paying it. People are paying it, and the
Yeah.
product was pretty good, and there was a lot of buzz about the company and what they
Mm.
were presenting. But wrestling goes in like peaks and troughs,
Yeah.
and you hit a trough, and you still continue to charge that amount of money for your shows
Mm.
and your merch and everything that involves in a day out, whether that's hotels and travel and fuel and everything else. It will get to a point where people just won't be able to afford to go, and they'll have to make a decision. As much as they'd love to go and be there and be part of that atmosphere and be part of that audience, they'll just get to a point where they won't be able to. And you'll get these touts that are picking up all these tickets,
Mhm.
and they won't be able to sell them on. So then there'll be less. The touts will stop buying as many,
Yeah.
which will, be an indication on screen when there's big gaps in the audiences and there's more areas tarped off.
Mm.
Um, when it's the hottest ticket in town, great, from their point of view, but you fleece your loyal fans, it will at some point bite you on the arse. And I feel like there's a little bit of that going on at the minute.
Yeah, there is. I mean, to be fair, I'm just looking at the tickets on map at the minute. I mean, there isn't that many actually left now. But the ones that are, I mean, they're not gonna. It's not gonna look. It's not gonna look bad when they do the camera stuff because now the tickets are pretty much, they're near enough sold out. The ones that are not sold out, they're still in the prime £600 a ticket areas, which is like your A5s and your A2s, and the rest is all done. But they've dropped it. They had dropped ticket prices down quite considerably
£8
for
to
the.
go and watch SmackDown is
I mean,
obscene, isn't it?
the furthest back you can get is about, well, 12, 15 rows back, and they want. Let me just quickly pretend I'm going to purchase a ticket, which I'm really not going to do.
But it's
Go
it's
on.
one thing with your live shows, though, isn't it? Your Raws, your
Yeah.
SmackDowns, your pay-per-views. And
Mm.
yeah, maybe nearer the time you sell a few more tickets, you slash prices, you get more people in,
Yeah.
you give some away to whoever competition winner, stuff like that. But when you've got your house shows, when
Mm.
they're doing a tour, those are the shows that are really going to be hit the hardest
Mm.
because you know it's one thing just to find it for when it's going to be on TV, but
Yeah.
people ain't going to pay 600 quid to go and watch a show on a Thursday night in Manchester or Dublin or wherever.
To give you a clue, is that so the ticket that I got was section D2, so that's not even at the front. This is your A's at the front, your D is it just the next
Yeah,
row behind, basically. To get that ticket, row 3D2 is over £500.
yeah, that's
You
just
can
yeah
you
for
can
one
literally,
ticket.
yeah, one ticket, yeah, one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather grate my balls down a cheese grater, to be quite frank. Uh,
Quite rich. But like I think of me a family of four,
well,
not
that's 2 grand,
yeah, it's just that's a holiday.
mate. That's more than
Um,
one, depending where you go. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
it's ridiculous. No, so the short answer, I know it was a long answer to your very short question, but no, I'm not going, and I won't be attending any WWE events while ticket prices are like that. People that want to go and spend that money, I've got no problem with. If you've got that money and you can justify spending it, fantastic. That 500 quid that I was going to pay could send me and Rachel to over 100 wrestling show, or maybe 50, 60 independent wrestling shows over here in the UK, where we can really make a difference because ticket money when those independent companies makes a big difference.
Yeah,
Doesn't WWE don't give a fuck if I go or not. Don't give a fuck if you go or not.
no. Well, whether WWE does is one thing. TKO certainly don't.
Yeah, well, exactly that. That's the thing. So, no, I'm
Yeah.
not going. But the big news coming off the WWE this week is, of course, Cody Rhodes dropping the World Championship to Drew McIntyre in the three stages of Hell match on SmackDown in front of that dog shit crowd in Berlin. I was thinking whether they were going to do this or not. There was a lot of clamor. Apparently, there was a lot of rumors that a lot of higher ups have been pushing for it. Apparently, Cody wanted it to happen. The ending, I know, Dave, you didn't like, which is the Jacob Fatu coming in. He started attacking Drew McIntyre. This was at 1-1. It was in a cage. He started attacking Drew McIntyre. Cody come out to try and stop that attack, which I don't understand why he would do that.
No.
Jacob then attacks Cody. They start fighting. Drew McIntyre, dead man, crawls out the cage and becomes champion. For me, the only thing I can potentially look at this is, was Cody the person that attacked Jacob Fatu when everyone else was thinking it was McIntyre?
Yeah. So I had a little time to think about this more. And I do admire that they did something different. I
Yeah,
do because we see so many cage
yeah,
matches. Well, you don't very often see this finish, and you certainly don't see this finish, which determines a new heavyweight champion.
yeah,
Doesn't happen very often, that type of
mm,
thing. It probably has in terms of an escape the cage and gone out the door. But the
yeah,
kind of how he fell out and he was opportunistic. Okay, you've tried something different, and I can appreciate that. My problem with it is that the fact that it was Drew McIntyre, I
yeah,
just don't think that that suits his personality. He's
mm,
a he's not a chicken shit heel for me.
no,
He's just not.
yeah,
He's a beast. And I don't think you'd see Brock Lesnar winning the world title in this respect, in this way. I don't
no,
think you'd have seen Undertaker or Kane winning the world title like this.
no,
So I don't think I have necessarily have a problem with the creative. I
mm,
admire it. It was the wrong person to do it with, though, for me.
yeah,
Um, in terms of Cody and turning heel, I'm not so sure. I don't. I think it sooner or later they will do something. I don't think it will be a John Cena where they don't do it and don't do it and don't do it. And
mm,
by the time they do, it kind of made a bit of a hash of it because of timing, really, and how long John had left. So I do think we'll see this alternative version of Cody at some point, but I don't think it's now. Um, yeah, I'm not sure, mate. I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are on it and Jacob's return, obviously, and where we go from here. Um, but yeah, I'm ultimately pleased that they've Drew has walked out the champion
mm.
because I didn't think that was going to happen, and but I thought it needed to happen. But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it was now or never. If
Yeah,
McIntyre had lost this, forget it. He was never going to win the world championship. So I'm glad that he won it. Is it going to be again? I keep mentioning Justin from I Love Wrestling. He said to me today that he didn't think it was going to be a long reign. He reckons he would drop it to Randy Orton at the Royal Rumble because Randy Orton's going to win that whole thing, and then perhaps we will circle back to Cody and Randy for the championship, which we has always been kind of the case, which was an interesting thought. I
yeah,
don't think Cody's going to turn heel. Character shift, maybe he'll turn. You can get a character shift and not turn heel.
yeah, yeah,
That's how I. That's how I see him do it. I agree with you on the finish. I think it would have been better if Jacob had come out. Perhaps he beat up McIntyre. He was beating up Cody, and then Drew McIntyre does a double claymore and then
yeah,
pins Cody, and maybe puts Jacob on Cody and then pins and lays on top of Jacob, who's on top of Cody. If you really wanted to make sure Cody wasn't, pinned cleanly in a sense, because he'd already got pinned relatively clean for the first fall, barring a low blow. That's how I would have done it. To
yeah,
be because McIntyre then he doesn't look like you say like the chicken shit heel, like he was already beat, that Cody had, technically. But my point about the whole crowd was, why the fuck, if you're Cody Rhodes, would you pull Fatu off of McIntyre?
yeah,
You
yeah.
wouldn't. You'd get out the fucking cage door.
Yeah, like even for Cody, this white meat baby face that is, really, kids aspire to be like him and dress up with him, and he's like the ultimate face in many respects.
Hmm.
He's not an idiot, and he just made him look like an idiot. He just made him look stupid.
Yeah.
Um, I don't really like, thinking about it, escaping the cage as a way of winning the match. I
Hmm.
never really have. But you've got one thing where you've got to climb over the cage to get out. To just open the door and walk out.
Well, you know, he fucking crawled out. He fell out, didn't
Well,
he?
yeah, in this case, but
Here's another way they could have done it.
yeah.
Here's another way they could have done it, right? They could have had that thing. You could have had the Jacob Cody having a melee. You could have had Cody whip Jacob into Drew, who flies out the middle rope and flies out the door.
Yeah, even that would have been better than because Drew kind of looks over and he kind of shuffles and sneaks his way out and
Mhm.
drops out the cage. And there's certain personalities. I think of an MJF or
Mm. MJF could
certain
have got away with that.
yeah, a Dominic Mysterio could have got away
Oh,
with that.
that's that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. There's others we can probably,
yeah,
list off, but I just didn't think it really suited Drew. And I just, yeah, I don't know. As I say, I quite like it in some respects that they've did something different.
yeah,
I can give them props for that. Um, and for ultimately pulling the trigger. And as you
yeah.
say, now or never, but they did do it. They've committed to it. The only
Mhm.
thing I hope is different to what you said. I hope it is a longer run.
Oh, so do
Um,
I. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure it will be, but I do hope that it is. I mean, you look at McIntyre as well. This is his third reign, I think, as world
Yeah.
champion. The first two, although there was a lot of good
First
stuff
one was in
going on.
COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's it. It was a difficult situation, and that Drew win over Brock was one of the highlights, I would say,
Yeah.
from that period when it comes to the product that WWE was putting out. Very difficult. No criticism really. You got the
No.
Thunderdome stuff, and they were trying different things to put out an interesting and compelling product. And Drew's title reign and title win was great, but it wasn't the run that he deserved and should have had because there was no crowds. So now I really do hope he gets a significant run and really establishes himself, and he already has. He's a top star. He's one of WWE's top performers. But I really want to see a longer run. I don't want to see him have it for 3 years, but I don't want to have it for 3 weeks or for a very short period of time and lose it ultimately the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, me either. We'll find out this week, obviously. Well, we'll find a bit more this week anyway. But yeah, it's been quite a relatively quiet week in wrestling. But I can't finish off without you telling us because you've done some incredible work this week for a good friend of yours that obviously, is no longer with us now.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about that. And obviously you've done over, I think £2,000 being raised, which is fantastic. But go ahead and tell us more, mate.
Yeah, so tragically I lost a friend before Christmas and unfortunately, like a lot of men under 50, my friend Gaz had his struggles with his mental health and he succumbed to those struggles unfortunately and he took his own life. And obviously very, very tragic and yeah, really difficult period. I've been vocal in talking about mental health, my own mental health. We've all got mental health,
Mm,
whether we have struggles with it, and life's really, really challenging at times. And everybody sooner or later are going to have things that really test them. And I've always been an advocate for talking more, not bottling it up, particularly as
yeah.
blokes. But yes, we lost Gaz and he didn't want a funeral. He'd stated this in conversations with family. I don't know when he expressed these wishes, but it was known by his family that when he did ultimately pass, that he would like to be buried and he'd like a tree to be planted on his grave.
Mhm.
That was his wish. And after he passed, his mom looked into the possibility and what this would involve, because obviously it's not something that is particularly common. It probably is more common than we realize, but it's not something you hear about as much.
Mhm.
So she has found somewhere that will do it, like a natural burial ground. Um, and I was just inspired really to try and raise a bit of money for the family to help them out at this difficult time. And my initial hope when I set up a GoFundMe was to raise a couple hundred quid.
Mhm.
Just put something out on Facebook and just see. And Gaz had a lot of friends and a lot of people know him. He's somebody that is in the Tipton area of the Midlands, famously where the Hunter brothers are from. Um, that everybody knew him. Everybody knew him, and I thought there would be an appetite from people to kind of get behind the fundraiser and raise a few quid for his family. I set the target at 500, which I thought was ambitious, but I've been massively blown away by people's generosity and the contributions that people have made. So the target kept moving, and that was GoFundMe
Mhm.
automatically adjusting it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but about kind of a week, 10 days ago, I noticed that we were about 1,500 quid, 1,600 quid. And I thought, well, let's try and do a bit of a push and get us up to £2,000. So we've achieved that. We've raised £2,012,
Yep.
which is going directly to Gaz's family. And that money has gone straight to he's fulfilling his wish of being buried and having a tree planted on his grave. So it's all kind of there's in a very tragic and sad time. There is something good that's come out of this. The generosity of people and the willingness of people to. I said it on my post today. Social
Yeah.
media gets a bad rep,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of beautiful things that can come out of social media, and something like a fundraiser, supporting Gaz and his family, and shining a light on mental health has been something positive. So thank you, mate. I didn't know we were going to talk about it, and it's as you can probably tell when I talk, it is something difficult, but it's something I
Mhm.
feel absolutely necessary. I feel like I've
Yeah.
got a responsibility to talk about mental health and to just let anybody know that might be watching. If you are struggling, there are people out there, whether that's organisations, whether that's charities, whether that's the likes of me and you that aren't professional therapists or anything, but
No.
maybe we can help in some small way and we can shine a light and we're always willing to listen and
Yeah.
people can always reach out to us. And yeah, thank you, mate. And yeah, best wishes to everyone that supported the charity efforts and obviously to Gaz's family.
Exactly that. And is this still open on GoFundMe?
Still open, yeah, it is still open. I mean, we've achieved the target or the
Yeah.
increased target, as I say, the initial target
Yeah.
was smashed out of the water very quickly. But it's still open if people did want to contribute, it's still
Yes.
there. Um, but I would encourage everyone to kind of get behind charities like Mind and
Yeah.
Calm, um, and just look out for your friends a bit more, check in with your friends, people that you don't speak to. And this isn't limited to men.
No.
Suicide is a huge killer, the number one killer of men under 50.
Yeah.
But I've also got a friend Zoe that passed in the same under the same circumstances about
Yeah.
18 months ago, 2 years ago. So it affects everyone. And let's all just look out for each other.
Indeed, and then with that note, if you would like to donate, the link is on our YouTube, bottom of our YouTube page, on the bottom of our Facebook post that will go out on this. All of our posts that we put out with this week in wrestling, the donation link will be there. So if you can do that, and like we say, even if you can't, and you just you need some help or you just want to reach out, just message us to message the Hitting the Turnbuckle stuff on our socials. We look, as David said, we're not trained professionals by any stretch of the imagination, but we'll always have our DMs open for you guys if or girls, if you are struggling or just need someone to talk to. So please do not hesitate to reach out. And if you can, donate as I said, the donation address link will be on all of our platforms with this video. Brilliant. Right. Well, that's this week in wrestling. We'll be back, of course, next week for some more. But David, do you know what? You can still, as I said, this isn't AEW related, but you can still do this. What it is, it's everything related. But you can still do the signature sign off, please.
Yeah, and I wish we hadn't spoke about Andrade. We'll talk about Andrade next week. Put him
Next
down
week.
on the list.
Yeah.
Yeah, time to bid you all adieu, goodbye, mwah, good night, bang.
Stay safe, everybody.